I'm Councilman Tony Brancatelli, Chairman of the Development Planning Sustainability Committee. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Brancatelli.
Present.
Hairston.
Here.
Cleveland. Griffin.
Here.
Bashir Jones.
Here.
McCormick.
Present.
Slife. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The Development Planning Sustainability Committee hearing is being held during the COVID-19 emergency declaration in accordance with Ohio's open meeting laws as amended by HB 404. This meeting is being held using a Zoom platform and is being live streamed on YouTube and on Cleveland's Channel 20, and also can be seen on Cleveland City Council website from Council's Facebook page. In accordance with Ohio open meetings regulations as amended by HB 404, notice of this committee hearing was publicly posted. This committee hearing will be conducted as all committee hearings in accordance with council rules and Robert's Rules of Order. The chair will facilitate the meeting and call on persons to speak. If you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand option on Zoom, and please limit your comments to the matters before today's committee. As is usual practice, any actions to be voted on during this committee meeting will be done by voice vote, called and recorded by committee clerk as required by Rule 15. Our first order of business, Madam Clerk, we have two presentations this morning. The first presentation we have through Cleveland Housing Partners on the Cleveland Scholar House. Present with us is Director Kevin Nowak, and I will turn the meeting over to Kevin to tell us about this wonderful initiative.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the time today. We really appreciate it. As Chair mentioned, my name is Kevin Nowak, Executive Director of CHN Housing Partners. I think most of us know each other. On this call with me today is Lisa McGovern, who's the Director of Real Estate Development for CHN, Nancy Mendez from the United Way, who is the Vice President of Community Impact, and Kara Porter from United Way, who's the Director of Education and Workforce Readiness. And we appreciate the time to be able to talk about Cleveland Scholar House. It's a project that we've been working on now for, 4 years. And hoping to be able to bring to full reality here, this year. So, Mr. Chairman, may I use a PowerPoint? Am I able to share my screen?
Yes, if you can allow for him to share screen, please.
He has the ability.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, we'll get this right. Why can't I see it? All right. Sorry about that. I'm not able to see my screen here. Let me move this over and get this started. You'd think that after this long, I'd actually have it ready. All right.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Can you see it?
Got it.
Great. Okay. The Cleveland Scholar House was really brought, first, oh, wait, wrong one. All right, there we go. Cleveland Scholar House. So back in 2016, 17, when we began working on Cleveland Scholar House, we really began working on it as a model that is focused on economic mobility. So as many of you know, CHN Housing Partners, we're focused on the power of a permanent address. So what we want to be able to do is use the power of permanent address to really be able to improve people's lives. And we don't see housing, we see housing as a basic need, as that first step, and then a platform for people to be able to succeed. And through much of our work, many of you know us from our work from our single family lease purchase, which has helped 1,300 plus Clevelanders, low income Clevelanders, become homeowners and to be able to achieve that American dream of homeownership, which really is about economic mobility and wealth building. We also try to use our other housing to be able to create that economic mobility for people. And so one of the things that we have done over time is explored a model called Scholar House. So what Scholar House really tries to do is to provide for that economic mobility for families who otherwise it's out of reach. So we want to be able to knock down barriers, to really be able to help people to be able to take down those barriers such as rent, such as daycare, that otherwise prevent them from continuing their education. And while doing that, also provide for a two-generational approach. But in providing for a two-generational approach, allowing for the economic mobility of the parents but then also having that having the early childhood education for the children. What we're able to do is really to provide a different trajectory for both the parents and the children moving forward. I'll kick over to maybe Nancy here to talk a little bit about some of the work that we were looking at for that two-generational approach.
Let me introduce our Director of Education, Kara Porter, who's actually been promoting two-gen models for the last few years. Kara?
Thanks so much, Nancy. Kevin, if you want to go to the next slide, I think we can start talking a little bit about what's involved with the model overall. So as Kevin was saying, we really are focused on a two-generation model. Scholar houses exist in other places throughout the Midwest, including in Cincinnati and Columbus. And I think here in Cleveland, we have the opportunity to really learn from what those other organizations have done. So a lot of scholar houses come either from a social service perspective alone at first, or a college and university perspective alone at first. And I think here in Cleveland, we have a great opportunity because right now we're already coming at it from both angles. So every scholar house includes affordable housing, academic supports, and health and wellness supports for the whole family. Many of them include high quality childcare. Here in Cleveland, from the very beginning, we have started out with these being part of the partnership that we're building. And as Kevin was noting, it's very important to have both services for parents, for the single parent, and services for children involved to get students off on the right foot. So we like to think of it as being the adult scholar and then the child scholar, who are both getting really important educational opportunities that will help them be, the parent be economically mobile and help the child be prepared for kindergarten from the moment they walk in the door, which we know is critically important for being able to complete their high school graduation and go on to prosperity themselves. And so we know that the model elements that we're building in here from the very beginning of Cleveland Scholar House are critically important to a family's success.
And when we're thinking about this system, there's really it's an integrated approach. We start with that affordable housing. So we're working in partnership with CMHA to provide for vouchers for the program. It's about education. We've been working with Cleveland State and Cuyahoga County Community College in order to provide that educational opportunity to help to identify students who otherwise are struggling, who otherwise may be needing to walk away from their education to be able to take care of their own family's needs. We're working with CEOGC to provide high quality daycare. One of the things that you'll see here in the next couple of slides is that we're actually looking at a site right across the street from Tri-C, next to William Patrick Day Center, Ward 5 in Councilwoman Cleveland's ward, and I've been coordinating with her over time as we've applied for this in the past. By providing for that daycare, both next door and then for the early childhood ed of the 0 to 2 age on site, it again eliminates those barriers for families to be able to take care of their children and then go and take care of their education. So when we're thinking about this, it's really, for over time, and one of the things a couple of years ago, at least for me personally, really became clear. I was talking to a developer here in Cleveland who his family business has done tens of thousands of units of affordable housing across the country. Was that oftentimes what we hear, and one of the criticisms about affordable housing and public housing is that families remain in there, right? And so this is really about providing that, providing the opportunity by, through the services and through these direct educational opportunities and then later workforce opportunities, be able to help families take that step. It's still the family's step. And what we found as we've explored these models is that when you bring together people in a community atmosphere, like what we're going to do at the Scholar House when we bring it to life, is that you support each other. It becomes a built-in support network where people are helping each other with their kids at, after hours. They're studying together, they're learning and they're living this experience together, and it has proven results.
So Kevin, can I
Good.
just add, if you could go back to the last slide, just a couple things on partnership. One, we want to stress that this model, this initiative is not creating another 501c3. Instead, we're taking existing services, existing expertise with all these incredible institutions and organizations you see in front of you, and coordinating those services around the family with the sole purpose of breaking the cycle of poverty, making sure that that single parent is on the pathway to a career that is self-sustaining and can sustain the family, and that that child right from the beginning is ready to succeed in school. That's our goal. We're not creating another 501c3. We are instead tapping on the existing expertise of the community and helping coordinating those services. And then the other piece I just want to stress here, when Kevin, his organization, a number of us, we went and saw a number of these models in action, and we saw the strengths of many of them and also the weaknesses. So it really put us in a situation where we could cherry pick the best practices of these different scholar houses and create one that's very specific to Cleveland, Greater Cleveland's needs. So we're really excited about the partners that we are working with and the opportunity to really change the trajectory of many families.
As Nancy mentioned, this isn't a new model. We're taking the best from other models and applying it to the facts on the ground in Cleveland. And, from the longest running scholar houses here, here are some of the stats. In the Family Scholar House, which is one of the first in Louisville, Kentucky, 81% of the participants are exiting to stable employment. When we look at the model in Columbus, that's over 90%. It's a shorter time frame. They've been operating for 4 or 5 years, but you see a 90% plus, at the Scholar House in Columbus. You see additional education. So not just that kind of first step of your bachelor's or associate's degree, but even further. And you're seeing an annual income of graduates of 47,000 plus, which is a good wage for families to start at. You see you look at the overall public benefit, 77% of graduates have reduced reliance on public assistance. That has a kind of a broader impact for our allocation of resources. And one of my favorite stats here is 88% of children that were part of the Child Development Center are performing above age appropriate for developmental benchmarks, which for us is where we want to be, plus some. So if I could just maybe pass it over to Lisa here to give a brief overview of the actual kind of bricks and sticks of the project and our timeline.
Thanks, Kevin. Good morning. So the site that we are working with is shown in the slide here. It's on Community College Avenue. It's right next to the William Patrick Day Daycare Center, which was one of the primary drivers, knowing that that's a high quality existing daycare provider that has Head Start slots in the program. This site is obviously also across from Tri-C and in easy access to CSU as well. It's got lots of amenities in terms of transportation, a rec center nearby, proximity to downtown, all of those kind of things. So the development itself is 40 units of 2 and 3 bedroom housing. The first floor will be primarily common space that will include things like a large community space so that there can be resident gatherings. There's indoor play space for the children located next to a fitness room and a computer room so that parents can be working out or doing their homework while their children are under their supervision next door. It is a 3-story building. One of the things that we are doing is expanding the daycare availability for CEOGC within this building. So we are building an additional childcare space in the facility that they will operate in. There's going to be on-site play area, both for the daycare side of things and then also for the residents. We're planning for about 50 parking spaces right now. The site's great in terms of being able to do all of that on site. The project itself is somewhere around $12 million. It's roughly a $9 million construction cost. And our plan, oh, actually, Kevin, do you want me to do the timeline?
Sure.
Okay. So we are applying for tax credits, which is the major source of funding for this project. That application is due in February of 2021, with announcements being made in May. Hopefully we get that funding. That's kind of the major piece that we need to secure. And if we do, we would be starting construction the following spring in 2022.
So, I think, one of the things that Lisa mentioned today, is the tax credit. So the local housing tax credit, as probably most of you know, has an annual 9% round, quote unquote. And so that is the low housing tax credit that provides the richest subsidy, for affordable housing. And so, as you can see, this project being a project that, has got significant additional service areas within it, and space, is more costly than oftentimes other affordable housing is, because, there's kind of cost containment and considerations we think about when building housing. But, so one of the things that causes is for us to not compete, kind of squarely within any of the kind of designated funding allocation areas within the qualified allocation plan, which is that kind of rule book. So that means that this project is something that is that is called a strategic initiative. And so the Ohio Housing Finance Agency will select projects that are otherwise strategic, that they consider strategically important within regions, and they'll often compare notes with the local municipality in terms of prioritization. So one of the things that we wanted to do today was just to make council more broadly aware. I appreciate the chair providing us the time. So as we're kind of approaching that February round and later into May, when OFA declares its awards, should OFA reach out to the city to ask about preferences, that council and we've already also talked to mayor staff, are well aware of this project and providing a priority for it if amenable.
Is that your presentation?
That's it.
Okay, if you can shut your screen down, there we go, so I can see who all has their hands up. But if you can, Kevin, really speak briefly the last couple of years on what the strategic initiatives were awarded for the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. The last couple of years, within the city of Cleveland, this last year is what sticks to my mind kind of most clearly, was Warner, Swayze, and Woodhill. We had received a support letter, from the mayor's office. We greatly appreciated, as well as Councilwoman Cleveland has been a supporter and provided kind of support letters for us. But I think the priorities that were given, were good priorities. Last year in terms of those, getting those projects off the ground, and LIHTC being a threshold for both of them. So this year, our hope is that ours becomes that priority.
And I think the most telling slide presented really was the partnerships that were highlighted, as Nancy spoke on. When you talk about CHN being a premier provider of stable housing, but then you bring in CMHA providing vouchers, and you look at the childcare through CG, as well as the educational, the work that Cleveland State and Tri-C are doing, and having urban kids come into their campus and having direct engagement with those students to make sure they succeed is pretty amazing. That's been introduced the last few years and has had a very good success rate. And certainly the resident services that both you and United Way do are pretty incredible, and especially for wraparound services. So, seeing those silos get broken down and having people work in partnership in this initiative is pretty telling. Councilwoman Cleveland, did you want to add to this?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Kevin. And I love your background.
Thank you.
I'm glad we're sharing this project this morning. This is something that's been a long time coming, and certainly there's a great need for it. I remember having conversations about this with Dr. Scope at Tri-C when he was the president of the Metro campus. You know, we kind of kicked this around maybe 8-9 years ago. You know, looking at, you know, how we can really bring everybody together and provide a supportive environment for people, particularly in communities like Central. And so to really see it, you know, finally reaching those stages is wonderful, Kevin. And I really thank you for your leadership in pulling everything and everyone together. And, you know, whatever you need, you know, I'm there with you. Again, it's a great project. And also an example, as the chairman mentioned, of a great collaboration of partners in this community. You know, Central has a lot of great anchor institutions, CMHA, Cleveland State, Tri-C, St. Vincent's and others, and school district. And, you know, we've got to do a better job in this community of pulling together the best of the best and making that something, you know, work for our community. And the other, you know, the other notion too, Kevin, and we talked about is, you know, how this model is expanding the concept of supportive living. You know, I think we're all familiar here with the supportive housing, permanent supportive housing for people who are chronically homeless. And again, we're, you know, reaching another segment of our population, you know, who needs just a little help to keep things together and, you know, eventually, you know, work to improve their lives and the lives of their families. So this is a great project. You know, again, you know, once it's done, you know, you've established another model for this to work in other communities. So again, thank you, Kevin, and to everyone on the project. I know Ms. Mendez, you know, you were great help with the our legal services initiative. So again, we got great partners, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for showcasing this project. I'm done. I don't know if I froze up.
I think Mr. Chair's on mute.
Tony, you're on mute.
All right, I get the square filled in for that. Councilman Griffin, sorry.
This is beginning to feel a little bit like Hollywood Squares a little bit. I'm dating myself. But first of all, I'm very excited for this project, and I'm glad that you guys are really talking about this. This seems very similar to the Harlem Children's Zone. And I'm not sure if anybody has ever watched that with Jeffrey Canada in New York, which basically offers wraparound services for young people and their families, because a lot of times we put a lot of focus on the young person, but we don't recognize that they have families as well that are dealing with the same issue. Plus, we know that housing insecurity, one of the top 5 issues in Cleveland. Let's face it, we got a real issue with housing security, from children being exposed to lead to, you know, people living on the margins of society, not being able to afford rent. So I'm very excited about this project. I'm coming to realize that a lot of times labor unions want to be involved. How are you developing a pipeline of the people that will be able to attend a project like this? Because we have low-wage labor unions that might be good partners, and other folks like AFSCME and SEIU and others that might be able to help establish a pipeline for some of these working single parents that can benefit from a program like this. So how are you guys recruiting and really looking at this?
Absolutely. So if we look at and you're talking, Councilman, about the population served,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So one of the things that we did early on is we had a conversation with the Cleveland Building Trades, you know, to talk through, you know, how can we help to create an apprenticeship pipeline? right? And so one of the things that we have to think through as we establish this model is one, the college education piece, and two, the vocational training piece. So though, and there isn't an order of preference there, though we started with the model, which is the college education model, because that's the model that we've seen work the best so far. Our goal in the long term, if it's not through this model, but through a second phase, would be to begin really trying to address that vocational training. There are income issues in terms of qualification for the projects. As you get into kind of apprenticeship level positions when you use the local housing tax credit. But we 100% agree with you. Vocational training is such a critical piece to what we do, what we need in our society, and provides really strong, fruitful, job opportunities and career opportunities for people, and want to see that work within this model as well.
And just as a follow-up, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Nowak, I know that that's very important. And I know that I've been talking a lot and meeting a lot with the labor unions, specifically the building trades, around how we can better utilize their erect funds, because they really want to invest more in some of these neighborhoods in projects like this, because it also helps them with their pipeline to apprenticeship, which is very important to them. And it gives an opportunity for some of these low wage folks that are in these unions that are barely making minimum wage to be able to, get into an affordable housing situation. So I really hope that we're really being intentional about how we're recruiting and really trying to be supportive of something like this. I'd like to see more of these projects throughout the city, quite frankly. Like I said, I think that we treat symptoms and we don't try to treat things holistically. And this seems like something that is very holistic. So I'm happy for my colleague, Councilwoman Cleveland. I think this is a great project for the ward that she represents. And of course, Cleveland Housing Network, I know that you guys have a reputation of really providing great affordable options. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank
you, Councilman. I do not see any additional hands up. That being said, thank you very much, Kevin, and thank you to your team. This is a pretty exciting and novel housing opportunity to bring to Cleveland. And as Councilman Griffin said, also has a great opportunity to be expanded in other neighborhoods. So,
point of reference, point of privilege, Mr. Chair. Mr. Nowak, can you get in touch with me either via email or call? Because I got people lining up around the corner for some of the housing options in Ward 6 as well. So
yes, sir.
They've been calling me to ask about those new homes you've built on 110th Street and also on St. Luke's. So demand is starting to rise. If you can give me a call, I want to really be able to advertise that if we could, okay?
Absolutely, Councilman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And that is our first presentation. Thank you all. Second up, we have Director Donald. We're going to be hearing about our online permitting and walk through a little bit of the examples of how that's going and how we do that. It's just been a great year for construction for the city once again, and Director Donald's team has been setting another record of permits, and now this new online initiative has really taken hold with COVID. So, Director Donald, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Council. Good morning, everyone that's there. Good to see everyone. I hope everyone's staying safe and warm. I will be sharing the screen, so I do have Tom Vanover here as well, who's the Chief Billing Official, Commissioner of Code Enforcement, guru of all things Excella and online for our department. So I will briefly go over just some stats to just show you guys just kind of like remarkably how our online permitting really has exploded, thankfully, as we've been really not pushing it. It's been in place for about 5 years, but never really gained traction because it's just so great and convenient for people to come down to City Hall, or at least it was, and interact with the staff, et cetera. But now, when the pandemic took hold in March, really the foresight of the administration throughout the years to position us in such a place where we could transition to online permitting, seamlessly, essentially. Although there are some obstacles and hiccups and things that we are working to improve right now to make sure that there's a better experience for both our staff members that are working to assist the customers and also the customers that interface with the system. So I will briefly just go over some stats, and then Commissioner/Chief Building Official Vanover will kind of go over the nuances of working through the system and give a demonstration or two. So let me see if I can get this share screen to work. Okay, everybody sees the presentation?
Got it.
Awesome. Let's see how to advance the presentation. Okay. So briefly, last year we had about 926 online permits submitted. This year to date, we're right about 6,000. So just that permits that are submitted online has increased, throughout our wildest dreams, quite frankly. And there were about over 9,000 other B&H applications submitted online as well. So let's just go through how that looks. Now, keep in mind, normally for budget hearing, I go a little bit more in deeper detail, but I just wanted to give you guys an overview to let you know just how things are looking. So if you look back to 2016, building permits, right when we got started, 197 submitted that year. This year, almost 6,000. Certificate of disclosures, generally that was a really good driver of online activity, as those are really like real estate transaction driven, et cetera. So we went from 4,000 to about 6,000. Contractor registration, generally there's not been a big increase yet this year. Keep in mind, our contractor registration expires at the end of this year. So we anticipate at the beginning of next year and at the end, December 31st is the ending date for contractor registration. So at the end of this year, beginning of next year, we anticipate that number to really skyrocket as well. And for rental registrations, we're really been trying, you can see a steady increase from 2018, 19, and 20. Most of our rental registration, people mail in when they receive their invoice. There's a ticket or a voucher that comes back. So you don't see a drastic increase, but really it's the building permit a function that has made a drastic change. Here you'll, just in graphic form, you'll see as years have progressed and the type of permitting. So our main driver has been construction. That would include residential permits and both commercial permits. And then the mechanical, so plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. If you look, somewhat about the same, but for the most part, construction has been our leader. And here you just get a really quick view of our online revenue for permitting. So from 2015, there were definitely some categories that were zero because just quite frankly, users were not using the system to this year. So in almost every category, we've doubled the amount of revenue that we've seen online. So it has been just really a game changer for us to be able, to issue permits online. So I will stop my share. And Commissioner Vanover, unless there are any questions regarding the figures. And then I'll move it on just to Commissioner Vanover to kind of give a tutorial, so to speak.
Commissioner?
So good morning, everybody. First snow of the year, and I started the day. I didn't get it. I didn't have to plow for my dogs like Councilwoman Brackatelli, but I did manage to get my car stuck at the end of the driveway first thing this morning. So welcome to winter in Cleveland. We are, as the director said, just a couple of points. We're really excited about our online permitting portal. COVID has changed the world, at least the world that we know it. And we were able to serve our customers in this time because of the work that we had done, the work that the mayor's administration has allowed us to do, and this council has approved over the past several years. A lot of departments, building departments, around the region, and other municipal divisions and departments panicked when we had to send everybody home. And this was a kind of a trial by fire. because we were about 85% complete with our online permitting and those processes. So, you know, third week in March, we were all of a sudden 98% complete because we had to finish some things. As the director said, a lot of the what we're working on currently is the communication between the public and our office. That's the hardest thing with any online transaction, is giving them the information they need. Those of you that are, you're all very familiar with our online, or with our permitting process. There's an application, then there's a zoning review, then there's a building code review. We go through planning and landmarks. So there's a lot of different things along the way that are all connected. And now we've connected tree preservation plans are in that, and then routing to different departments and divisions. So there's a lot of moving pieces in this. So getting everybody the information they need when they need it is what we're really focused on now, because we think that is the weakest link, is people knowing they need to pay this fee, or we need more information and things of that nature. And then, so we're working through that. We've got some full-time employees that we've budgeted and brought on to work on many things, but this being part of it, to document how we communicate to the public. As I always say, you know, in the building department, there's three types of applicants. There's the one-timers, the some-timers, and the all-the-timers. The all-the-timers, you can see they're in those commercial blocks, that they do this all the time, and they know what the process is. They know, and they're teaching us. They're telling us what we need, because they're experts at it. One-timers, they're a little harder. These are the homeowners that are just trying to get their stuff done. One time, they'll probably never build another garage in their life, or they'll probably never re-side their house again. So they take a little more hand-holding, and then the some-timers, you know, they're obviously in the middle of all of that. So one of our goals, our biggest goal, is to get them the information that they need. So that's what we're working on now. We're going to deploy some technologies, and using social media, using YouTube, using videos, to help educate step-by-steps on how people can do that. But as I said, we were very fortunate that we were able to send people home at the beginning of the pandemic, and we missed between the online, the mobile workforce for the inspectors, which is something that's part of this package that doesn't get as much conversation. Probably just because it's just not as, you know, it's not as sexy. But, you know, we have all of our inspectors also doing, working remotely from the field, to limit the activity at City Hall. So if I'm not sure what, you know, the council would like to see, I can do a quick demo on the process. If
you can pull up the screen and just kind of quickly run through, you know, a couple of the applications that people would see.
Okay, so bear with me a second here. All right, did that work? Everybody can see that?
We got it.
All right, so I'm gonna start here. So, all right, so when people go to the There's a link on our webpage from Building and Housing webpage. We're working to get that to be more prevalent as well. This is the first place they start. In order to apply for a permit, you have to log in. You have to have a user account. So I'm not going to walk through that, but this link right here is where people register for an account. Almost everything, and those of you that are familiar with this site, almost everything else you can do without logging in. You can do it anonymously. You can search and you can find information. But in order to do this, you need to, in order to make application, you have to log in. So I have my login poised and ready here. Once you log in, it knows who I am. You can see here, it says I'm logged in as Tom Vanover. That's me. And then you get, these are the options. So understand that this is used by multiple departments at this time. We were very excited about that. We spent a lot of time and a lot of money getting everybody in the city the ability. Currently, we'll be bringing lead stuff online here. The fire department will be, you can access their stuff, but they're working toward putting their permits online as well. And then public health, you can see, you can search the lead status inventory. So these are the places, and these are all the options that you have. So I'm going to go to permits and registrations. And then the disclaimer that says, you know, don't do bad stuff. If you've got a license connected to your, this is a big deal for our, because we do register contractors and attach them. If they have a, when you log into your account or when you create your account, we have the ability to take your plumbing license or your general contractor's registration and attach it right to it. So it's always there for you. But for this one, I'm going to do not applicable. And then move forward. And then it just walks you through a series of questions. We're going to do a commercial application. I'm going to do a building permit. And you can see in this how it takes a certain level of understanding some terminology. You have to know this is a commercial property. You have to know it's a, you know, you're looking for a building permit. But that's no different than if you were doing this in paper. You would have to know these same things. We'll continue the application, and then here we'll start just typing in the information. There is a search function as well, where I can put in just part of the information and then hit the search. So that's actually what I'm going to do, because to show you the autofill feature. And so let's do.
If that comes up condemned, I'll be concerned.
So they're so all of our reference data that they're searching from, you can see it populated the address and the zip code, the parcel number, the ward, and it searched and it populated all of the information. We now have, which is very recent, we have a pipeline to the county. So all of our reference data for our parcels and for the addresses, we get on a 30-day cycle from the county's website, the county's information, which is extremely helpful because we don't have to free search everything that's in there. So then from there, now I've got my address, continue the application, and then continue the questions. We're going to put $20,000 in here. We're going to put 0 housing units, and it's 1 building. Project name is going to be
Renovate the council president's office.
right. We're just gonna put some test information in here so that and then again it goes back to, I mean, there's a lot of information we collect because we have to, but we've scoped it out to where it's drop downs as much as we can. And people then, they just get to go through, and because this is a commercial application, and that's why I did it, there is a little more information than what you would need on a residential one. But you just go through and answer the questions the best you can. And we will research all of this, you know, once we get it on our back end. So, and then they'll just continue to fill out the information. They don't have to fill out all the information, just the information that they have. There are some required fields. Excuse me. And then we move on. This is where we would put in the architect information, which is more information that we collect. We're going to move past that. This is the contacts. Gives me the option to select from the accounts, from my account. So I just pick my name. There I am. Now I am in there. The city knows how to get a hold of me. We're going to continue the application there. This is where they upload their plans, just like any other uploader, right? So they'll click the add button. It'll go into their archives. They pick the plans, they hit them, they submit them to us. That takes a little bit to, you know, the upload process. So I'm not going to do that for this application. And then here it is. It just now check your stuff and see what your make sure everything's good. Gives them the opportunity to edit if they've missed something or made a mistake. And then continue. And you go to the it tells you these are the fees. This is what it's going to cost you. It starts off with a $150 zoning fee.
For commercial.
For commercial, yeah. Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, you want to give me your credit card number and I'll
I thought you had it. You already have it on file.
I'll run this through. And then it gets to, so then this is the last page. So, we go through the payment process. They get their receipt. We get it into our queue that this is a brand new application looking for somebody to you know, then we start processing it because it's connected to their login. Every time we make an action on it, they'll get an email that says, hey, this is what the city's done. And we are now waiting for you. Any questions on that? I know I went through it pretty quickly, but I wanted to show.
Yeah, I think that's a great overview. And I think your point earlier, the idea that you're going to be creating some tutorials on this and some YouTube. And I think going out and engaging in our community, you know, we have a pretty robust community development structure that we can make sure folks can work with the small contractors as well as the medium-sized ones to let them know, you know, how this process can work is a great opportunity for people to be engaged with the city through this technology and through this platform.
And I appreciate that. And for the most part, people love it. They like it. They like, you know, they don't, not that there's some folks that still just want to come downtown, right? That's their day. And
they just want to see your face. That's all. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have, we have extremely hardworking, friendly, and talented people that work for us. They're not here to see me. I can guarantee you that. But there's a group of folks that sit at the front of 505 that deserve all the kudos, and the staff that we have in place and their ability to manipulate this. Now, remember, not so many years ago, it was all paper all the time. So the numbers that the director presented I think we are at roughly 40%. I don't have the exact figures, but between 40 and 45% of our permits are online. We still have people dropping paper off downstairs during COVID, but for that's pretty substantial. And we're not talking about just roofs and windows. A lot of municipalities that I know, they advertise how many, the number of permits. Omaha, Nebraska increased when they went online, they increased their online permit by online permitting by like 800%. Well, they also created a special permit and they had a hailstorm. And so they issued roof and siding permits to the tune of like 20,000. So those numbers were a little slighted. These are real permits, day to day, rank and file, nothing special for a special purpose. This is just everything from putting in new windows to building a new garage. The Lumen building was submitted online. So that's and those, that's 20 plus story high rise downtown.
And so what we will do is, if you can close your screen, Commissioner, we'll have Joe Titron send around the link for the Acela program, so people have a reminder of how they can get into that. The user that you signed up as, anyone can sign up as a user. There's no cost to sign up as a user. You create a password, and the exciting part about that is, the access that you have is the access that the public has. They can see the status of where these permits are at when you're on this platform. You can look
I want to show that real quick, if you'll indulge me for a moment. So I just selected a random permit that has been issued. And once they have created it, they can go by just logging in. They actually don't have to log in at that point, but they can type in the permit number right in this box here. It brings up their permit and it shows the status of our review and where it's at. So this one's already been issued, so it's sitting at inspection. So the customer has the opportunity through this link right here to do just that. They can go through, find additional details, and then they go to processing status, and this shows, okay, is it with the plans examiner still? Is it still in zoning? Or is it at permit issuance? I encourage the members of council to look and use this. It's for both of our sake. We get a lot of requests from CDCs, from council. What's the status of this permit? Because your constituents are calling you. It just makes it easier for everybody if to teach them and your staff to just look right here, and it'll save you a couple of days.
So if you can click on the permit, scroll down, just scroll down and click on the permit. Yeah, click on that one. So I think this is what's very helpful. You don't have to be the applicant. This is a public platform, so you can see the status of the permit. You can see when it's issued. These are important components that, for us, our EAs who are looking to follow this, those drop downs are very helpful. You know who's involved, you know who the contractor is. So it really gets you through those questions. And this processing page has become an incredibly valuable tool because it shows you where it's at in the process at any given time. And it's an incredibly helpful view for us I think for people to click through and see. And if you go to the top of that page, one of the ones that we do get stuck on sometimes under reports, every once in a while, you'll hear somebody saying, well, geez, I've been waiting for my permit. And then when you go in and look under someone's collection of their permits, they actually didn't pay for it. So we're waiting for a check, some simple things like that, or we're waiting for some review. But it's a helpful view for us to be able to get and see what's going on at any given time.
And that's exactly right.
If I can just add one more comment, and then we can go to if anyone has questions. We really are anticipating that when things return to air quote, normal, that we will still have a lot of traffic with online permitting. We fully do not expect that every user will then switch over to coming back into the office, nor do we want that, right? We are building up our department even more to support the online permitting, as Commissioner Vanover mentioned, as far as just, reallocating staff, having people review, making sure things are in place, that we are, processing these in a timely manner, et cetera. So we really encourage people to use and continue to use the online permitting portal.
Absolutely. And this real quick, you can see for council's purposes and the public. This is by going to the reports up here. This is the permit. So it's much easier to check to see if somebody's got a permit and what the actual, this is the copy of the permit. And when they do it online, when it's finished, they print this and hang this in the window. So you guys can also see, oh, okay, so 735 East 118th, yeah, they do have a permit for this work that they want to do on it. So this happens to be a rehab plan for a condemnation, but now I'm going to try and figure out how to give up my screen.
Stop share.
Yeah, look at that. Look at me go.
Yeah, and I openly acknowledge that I have been using this platform now as a guinea pig, and Director Donald gets all my silly questions because I get stuck on these. But I have figured it out and have come to embrace the opportunity that we can help our residents and work with our small contractors to really make this as a functional platform. Not that we don't want to see them come down to City Hall, but I think being able to do this remotely. And shout out to our planning department and landmarks and all those other departments have to weigh in, and whether it's a BRD and an overlay district, those all get brought into consideration as these permits are going through the process. So it's a great example of the departments working together and really figuring this out, and just as easy to pay online. So not that we don't want to go see our cashier, but when you can pay online, you just click a button. I know Councilman Jones often tells me that I need to get out of the dark ages on some of these and get with technology. Councilman Jones, you have your hands up. Unmute yourself, please.
You're brilliant, Chairman, man. Technology has to catch up with what you know, man. So I appreciate it. And, Chair, I do want to say that this is a great thing, man, that the city is going in a great direction. I think this is really good, and thank you to the director. I guess my question from the chairman to the director is, how prepared are your employees to handle this? I mean, it's one thing to get this stuff in, but as we this new phase of technology that we are coming into, sometimes it's hard for people to manage it. So what type of training are you doing for your people? How are they prepared to move this quickly? And how much time did this cut down on switching to this or enhancing this process?
Through the chairman to the councilman, thank you, Councilman Jones, for the question. So on the one hand, on one level, this doesn't change much for my employees' function day to day. So as Commissioner Vanover showed, like all the information that's online is the same information that's on a permit, meaning, and it forwards to my employees in the same work management system, Excella. So that's the same system that they've been using for years. It pops up in the system. So really effectively, it doesn't look any different to them, whether it's online or a paper, it's just that it's missing the paper and everything's electronic. I will say that one of the things that we didn't quite anticipate that we're working through currently is not necessarily the processing time. Well, part of it is because online or in person, someone's there with you. So if someone misses a step on an application, you can easily say, hey, Bob, can you fill this part out? When it's online, sometimes people submit information, either it's the wrong application because they've guessed wrong, because they're not sure. They submit a residential instead of a commercial or vice versa. So we have to go through that backtracking plan. So it's all the really touchy-feely things that we didn't anticipate. So how much time we had to spend hand-holding people through the process because they weren't familiar or uncomfortable. You have to keep in mind, as Vanover mentioned, there are 3 types of users. Those one-time people that normally just walked in the door and walk right out with their permit, they may not have even really had internet access. They may not have been familiar with our online system. So there was a lot of really hand-holding and training that we have to do with some users to get them to the endpoint. But on the other hand, we feel it's worthwhile, of course, because moving down the line, as I mentioned, we aim to have people still using this online permitting system. So I think it's really the customer service aspect of people used to be able to just walk down and figure out the status of a permit, now teaching them how to navigate and use the online system, how to apply for a permit, what to do, what not to do, I think is our biggest hurdle. And so, as we mentioned, we're working on maybe like some Zoom or WebEx, pick one, videos that kind of really walk people through how to use these situations, how to check their status, how to do the things that are kind of keeping our employees tied up from doing the actual work of issuing permits.
And if I may, just understand, this is going on now. So it's not like, at this point, our staff they'll always need training, but our staff, they're doing this. So when you initiate something new, there's 2 things you look at from an employee standpoint of why they can or cannot do it, right? So it's ability, technical ability, and culture. So there's we've got staff that they're used to paper. 200 years we've been moving paper around. COVID really actually helped us and was really good to us in that aspect, in that there was no more people in the building, right? Nothing says pay attention to me like me. And so all of the employees, everybody they dug right in, got right on board, because there was no more, the cultural part was gone, right? The fact that we had employees, I'd like to see the people here. I'm not a big fan of online, blah, blah, blah. Well, now that wasn't an option. So it was really changed by force. And again, when we shut down in March, I think there was like maybe 2 or 3 days that we scrambled a little bit. But then after that, we were back up and running, and they started delivering stuff downstairs, and we started calling people saying, pay your fees online, pay and make your application online. So the employees, there's more training to do as we augment the system to be more user-friendly, but they're killing it.
And any additional questions, Councilman Jones? I think I may have lost him. What is your, are you going to hit that $1 billion mark again this year, Director?
Chances are we will. TBD to budget hearing.
So I just want to remind folks, the building department is going to process $1 billion in permitting this year. This would be like the 10th year in a row averaging $1 billion of permitting. So,
disclaimer, the disclaimer is that is construction value. That's the cost of construction, not revenue to the budget. All right. Okay. So don't start allocating your portions of that $1 billion. That is construction value.
Exactly.
Not revenue.
It is an incredible accomplishment in the department. And I think in looking at, as you look at how each of the departments are engaging with this, I think the other link I'd like to make sure that Joe Tytron sends out is the planning department's Cleveland GIS maps. I mean, it's just an amazing overlay that you can see what the uses are. It is really interactive, and for those who want to do overlays and figure out where their fence should go or not go, the planning department has a wonderful overlay that they can use. So it is, folks do have access to a lot of information now that just a short time ago wasn't available to us. So I wanted to make sure we got this out there just because of the volume of how this is increasing. As folks are starting to think about who needs to be engaged and understand this, we can reach out to the department, and I'm sure the director and the commissioner would be happy to help set up forums and also take input as those of us are using this are looking for ways to make this as user-friendly as possible. So I do not see any other hands up. And I appreciate my colleagues and our guests' patience as we got through these two first presentations. Anything else additional, Director, before we let you go on this?
No, and thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Director. And thank you to your team. All right, now as we move into the agenda, I know we have some guests here who either haven't fallen asleep or are bored to tears. Director Ebersol, do you have guests online? I know I see Joe Marinucci online. Are they for a particular piece of legislation? What's that?
Not for me. Not for me. Joe's with us,
okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, which piece is that, Director?
Yes, that's for the appointment of the Assessment Equalization Board. That's item number 910-2020.
Okay, if we can jump into that, then I'll do 910-2020, Resolution 910-2020 by Council Members McCormick, Cleveland, B. Jones, Brancatelli, and Kelly by department requests, appointing an Assessment Equalization Board to hear objections to estimated assessments with respect to the continuation and expansion of the Downtown Cleveland Improvement District and the comprehensive services for district, and declaring an emergency. Director?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. As you all know, this is a continuation actually of Ordinance 713, 2020, which began the process of approving the expansion of the Downtown Cleveland Improvement District. As a part of the process, the technical aspect of the process, it's required that a board be appointed for the assessment and the equalization to hear objections to estimates or estimated assessments. As you know, in these districts, there are taxes assessed, and those resources are brought back into the boundaries of those particular districts. And this is basically the appointment of the board that's going to be handling the hearing of any objections to estimates, which is a part of the requirement with respect to the process. So it's pretty straightforward. We've done this on many other occasions for the other districts that we have throughout the city. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Marinucci to add anything to what I just articulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. If I would just add, again, this is a formal step that is required as one of the due diligence to work with property owners on the assessment process. It's consistent with what we've done in all of the authorizations. And I would obviously welcome the ability to answer any questions, but appreciate the committee's support. I know Councilman McCormick, Councilman Cleveland, and Councilman Jones, who all represent a portion of the district, are on the call. And obviously, I greatly appreciate their support.
Thank you. Council members, did you have anything to add at Cleveland, Bashir, Jones, or McCormick? Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support this legislation. This is, again, another step in the direction to reauthorize the critically important downtown SID, which is a key part of the day-to-day operations of our downtown neighborhood, the 20,000 residents that live in it, and also a key piece to, really when we come out of this pandemic, making sure that we're putting all of our neighborhoods, including downtown, on strong footing to move forward. So really important part of the journey here, Mr. Chairman, and I fully support this legislation.
Great, thank you. I do not see any other hands raised. No further questions. Ordinance 910-2020 stands approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. I do not see any other, am I missing any other guests that are up? All right, we'll start then from the top of the agenda. Ordinance number 816-2020 by Council Members Brancatelli, Griffin, and Kelly by department request to supplement the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976 by enacting new section 34720 relating to small box discount retail stores. Director?
Thank you. This piece of legislation, Mr. Chairman and others, is a very important piece of legislation. Not necessarily an easy piece, somewhat controversial to a degree. And I preface my comments by stating that because this obviously impacts our communities in a major way. There have been some negative externalities with respect to these types of investments. I would like to thank council, city planning staff, and other administrative departments for actually reviewing this piece of legislation. We had to start having this dialogue, I believe, Councilman Griffin, probably 2 years ago now. So the time went by pretty fast. And we've gotten to a point where we believe that we have a piece that will address many of the concerns surrounding these types of investments. One of the things that I have often said to the corporate community is that this is not a witch hunt or an indictment on investments by dollar stores in our community or small box stores. What this legislation really seeks to do is really to regulate the location of these discount retail stores so that we can protect our neighborhoods from the oversaturation of these types of facilities. When you get to a certain scale, we often notice that quality is compromised. And there are many individuals in our neighborhoods, council, community members, who is not going to necessarily tolerate that issue. The other thing that we want to do is to avoid and reduce the oversaturation, as I indicated. We try to maintain the cleanliness of these facilities. And again, sometimes overcapacity can equate to an inability to deliver on cleanliness. And we also want to promote and embrace new approaches to retail so that we can provide quality goods, healthy food options, and other things to meet the demands of retail and also deliver that affordably. These institutions, to some degree, have been a really good partner, but in other cases, there's some responsibilities that are waning. And this piece of legislation starts us on the road of course correcting the concerns that have been raised by many members of council, the community, and just a cross section of folks who have raised the issue. Now, we want to walk through a presentation that's relatively detailed. Will be as efficient as possible, but it's very important for context setting, given the importance of this piece of legislation. So I'm going to turn it over to one of our very talented staff members, Shannon Leonard, who's going to walk you through this legislation and give you some of the data and information that's going to help support your deliberation today. So Shannon, you want to share your screen, please?
Can you
Got
see
it.
it?
Got it.
All right. Sorry about that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is walk through a couple definitions that you'll see in the legislation if you read over it. So basically, a small box discount retail is a retail store between 3,000 and 15,000 square feet. It also dedicates less than 15% of shelf space to fresh or fresh frozen foods and produce. And then it also sells at a retail an assortment of physical goods, products, or merchandise directly to the consumer. This includes food and beverages, health and hygiene, household goods, and these are generally less than $10. This is also another term for the dollar store retail model, which happens to be the fastest growing retail model in the United States currently. Fresh produce, that's fruits and vegetables that have not been processed in any way. This doesn't include herbs, wild rice, dried fruits and veggies, eggs, seafood, etc. Then there's also fresh or fresh frozen food. That's food for human consumption that is in its raw state or unprocessed. So like frozen Brussels sprouts, they've been blanched They were quickly frozen while they were still fresh. What is not a small box discount retail? So in the legislation, you'll see exclusions. This is so that this wasn't so overarching that it didn't affect every C-store or pharmacy or mom and pop grocer. So these are retail stores that dedicate less than 5% of their shelf space to food sales. These are retail stores that sell gasoline or diesel fuel. They are not retail stores that contain a pharmacy, and they are also not retail stores that dedicate at least 15% of shelf space to fresh or fresh frozen foods and produce. So for example, your mom and pop grocer or your local neighborhood C-store that has groceries, but they fall in that 3,000 to 15,000 square feet store range. So the purpose of this legislation, as Director Collier stated, is really to regulate the location of these stores for the protection of our neighborhoods. They do have secondary negative effects that we will walk through, and to basically prevent the clustering of these businesses. We also would like to maintain the cleanliness for the health and safety of our residents with our neighborhoods. We would like to promote and embrace new approaches in retail to provide quality goods and healthy food options that meet the needs of our residents. We'd also want to encourage better quality, better products, and better service delivery across the board. And we would like to create fair and equitable opportunities, not only for our corporations, but also our small mom and pop at local stores. So a little bit of background. This started a couple years ago, as Director Collier stated. It was initiated by a working group of council, city planning, and other administrative departments like building and housing and the law department to address the oversaturation of these types of businesses. There was also research and review of existing literature and case studies and other jurisdictions that have passed similar legislation, or they are also dealing with some of the similar issues that we are here in Cleveland. Some of those places, this is not all-inclusive list at this point as it has grown in the last 2 years, are Mesquite, Texas, Tulsa, Fort Worth, New Orleans, suburbs of Atlanta, also now Atlanta, Birmingham, Baltimore, Kansas City, Minneapolis, and recently Toledo, Ohio. We also conducted a map analysis of the existing small box discount retail within the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County to see if our numbers match what we were reading in the literature. We also did analysis of review of building and housing complaints and violations, a review of public safety data at these existing locations. And then there was also, as you remember, the moratorium that was passed earlier this year that just recently expired on November 1st. So I'll go through a little bit of the results that we found from the reviews that we did of current literature as well as case studies throughout the United States. Some of the findings that were found were that there's a proliferation of these small box discount stores in urban areas, including the city of Cleveland. The corporate small box discount retail stores have announced publicly that they have massive expansion plans into our rural and urban low income areas. The corporate strategy is to saturate communities with multiple stores. Most of this is because there is a very low price point. As you are well, they sell self-serving options, and therefore to make a profit margin, they must have multiple stores to make much of a profit. Again, these stores are also, they sell single serving quantities that are lower price points initially, but over time they're more expensive per ounce. They employ far fewer people at lower wages than grocery stores, and their maintenance and cleanliness is not a top priority as most of these such businesses lease their spaces, or they just do not have the capacity to maintain due to their low employment. Most of these stores' formats are a maximum of 2 to 3 employees at any given time. And so those employees are responsible not only for running the store, but stocking the store, preventing theft, stopping theft, etc. And so also, as you may not know, that most of these types of stores don't sell any types of fresh food, and only a limited selection of packaged food, as this chart shows. The 2 major dollar chains in the United States, which you may know as Family Dollar and Dollar General. Family Dollar and Dollar Tree are now one company. Dollar Tree owns Family Dollar. They are now feeding more Americans than Whole Foods is, which is a all natural, generally grocery store. For more information, growing evidence is that these discount stores are not only a byproduct of economic distress. Right now, they're thriving during COVID with so many Americans on unemployment, but they also really were thriving back during the economic recession. But a lot of the research is now showing that not only are they a byproduct, but they are also a cause of it. Such saturation makes it very difficult for local mom and pop shops already existing in the neighborhood to stay open or prosper. It also makes it very difficult for new grocers to open. And then these profits from these small box discount stores go back to the corporate office, while our local mom and pop profits go back to the communities in which they serve. And then there's lots of concerns about safety and security surrounding these small box discount stores because of the high incidences of crime and theft and lack of security. Again, there's not many employees on site. They are mostly concerned with their interiors, as has been stated during their investment meetings, and they really do not have the capacity to monitor their outdoors. Another important fact is that because they are so saturated in these communities and they're keeping other retail options out, they are sometimes the only option, which makes them the only opportunity generally for some type of theft. The chart on the right can just show you the new store openings. As I stated before, these types of retail are the fastest growing retail in the United States currently. Just for a little bit of context, there's about approximately 30,000 of these types of stores, and they're still growing. And even though they do not sell fresh food generally or in big quantities, they are now, there's more stores of them now than the biggest grocer, which is Walmart. In context, Walmart has approximately 4,700 stores across the United States and employs 2.2 million people.
And Shannon, if I may add, when you see that chart initially, one would think, and if you heard from a Dollar General or Dollar Tree, they would prop this up as a really great statistic that they're opening so many stores. But part of what we're demonstrating here is that it's that level and scale of saturation that has compromised and exposed some of the issues that we're articulating to you today. So it's really important to understand really what this chart implies. Go ahead, please.
And then also this chart, just so you know, this is from 2017-18. This has now doubled since then in the year 2019 going into 2020. So the next step was to basically do a map analysis to see if some of these research that we were doing actually applied to the city of Cleveland. And so basically I took these, the location of these stores across the city and applied them with different census data like education, poverty, race, income, etc. So just to go through a couple of them, we placed the small box discount stores with a combination of full service grocery stores against the poverty maps for the city of Cleveland. And what we found is that the greater the population in poverty, the greater amount of small box discount stores. This is important because Cleveland generally has more people in poverty as a whole than the entire Cuyahoga County. There are currently approximately 70 existing small box discount retail stores in the city of Cleveland proper, where there's only about 37 across Cuyahoga County as a whole. And our case studies are basically showing that these type of stores cluster in low income areas, which is evident by our map analysis. So kind of just to give you an example, if you look west of Cleveland over here, you'll see that about less than or equal to 11% of the population is living below the poverty level, and only one such store is a small box discount retail. Note, red is discount retail, green is full service grocery store, and it's surrounded by about 4 full service grocery stores. On the other hand, if you look in the central Kinsman area, and as well as the Woodhill Estates between the Woodland Hills and Buckeye neighborhoods, there are multiple small box discount retail stores and little to no grocery stores. The other thing that we looked at was race. What the findings say is that such stores clusters in our predominantly African-American neighborhoods, and our research analysis showed that as well. So this applies to Cleveland and our inner ring suburbs of places like Warrensville Heights and Garfield Heights, which are both predominantly African-American. This is important because this also shows the distribution of full service grocery stores that sell fresh foods, produce, meats, and other items. And then it corroborates the case studies. So another example is in the central neighborhood where we had 52 to 100% of the population living below the poverty level, and it's predominantly African American. You'll notice that there's 2 small box discount retail stores less than a mile from each other, but no full service grocery stores. In contrast, if you look at University Circle neighborhood, which is predominantly non-Hispanic white, there are more full service grocery stores and much less, if any at all, small box discount retail stores. So why is this an issue? So health status, as we know, is linked inextricably to our social, physical, and economic environments. We know that low income in our Black and brown communities are more likely to be exposed to unhealthy conditions, such as environmental pollution, neighborhood crime, and low quality housing. And we also know that our small box discount retail stores are continuing to proliferate our low income and predominantly African American neighborhoods. We know that such stores have lower quality items that cost more per ounce over time, and it limits access to fresh foods and a wide variety of products for most vulnerable neighborhoods. And they have a profound impact on the health and quality of life of the surrounding neighborhood. Some of the community concerns that has been brought to us by council as well as residents alike across the board that these stores produce are loitering, litter, maintenance inside and outside, oversaturation, as if it's the only retail option in some of our neighborhoods, crime and safety. This fear of our safety discourages our residents from walking in their communities. It increases their stress, which affects their health, and it reduces opportunities for social interactions. And sometimes residents default to these stores because they are the only option within their neighborhoods. The pictures on the right are pictures I took from the area across Cleveland, and Summit County is the lower right picture of these types of stores, the interior and exterior. So that's how we arrived to this new legislation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the legislation is, what it does, and why we chose to go this route. So the new legislation, it implements a 2-mile or 10,560 foot spacing requirement for new use permit applications. This separation requirement does not apply to our existing legally established and in operation prior to the effective date of this ordinance for obvious reasons. It requires our department, city planning, to maintain a map of legally existing small box discount retail store locations. This is precedence found in some of our other separation and distance buffers in our code, such as residential facilities, billboards, etc. It also requires applicants to submit a floor and shelf plan as part of their building permit application. This is really so that building and housing and enforcement can know how to separate out these small box discount retail stores from our mom and pops and our other retail establishments. It also requires the owner and operator to comply with proper premise maintenance, applies to existing and new. So this is for our existing small box discount retail and our new small box discount retail. They must keep their exterior of their site, including their sidewalks and tree lawns, abutting the property free of litter and debris. They must provide one or more solid waste container directly outside their primary entrance. These containers must be maintained in good condition, unlike the picture you just saw previously, and of suitable capacity to contain litter and debris between our scheduled waste collections. So why did we choose a distance buffer of 2 miles? So there are several options. The communities that we looked at did different things. Some did distant buffers, some did overlay districts, and others did special permits or conditional use permits. The reason why we chose the distance buffer of 2 miles is, first of all, the overlays did not work well in other jurisdictions. What they would see happen is that they would put these overlays over certain sections of their city, and then those stores would just cluster along the border of each of those districts, basically defeating the entire purpose of trying to reduce overconcentration. And then also the current amount of stores located within our city, there are so many that are located within less than a quarter mile, half a mile, and 1 mile of other existing small box discount stores. So we decided that to adequately address the overconcentration issue, we needed to apply this distance buffer citywide. And then in addition, a lot of the argument is that market forces shall govern zoner. However, we believe that if we address health and equity within our city by adopting policies, market forces cannot govern our zoning regulations. So is this a fad legislation or war against dollar stores? This is often a criticism about this type of legislation. So what we have found is that cities throughout the country and our region are experiencing a lot of the same things that we are with the proliferation of these stores and the negative externalities that come from these types of stores. And so just like these other regions and regions to come, because there's lots of cities that were not listed in this presentation that are also thinking about this type of legislation because of these issues, just like Cleveland. And then this legislation for us is not a war on dollar type stores. It's really about corporate responsibility and ensuring that we have a diverse retail options within our communities, and also providing equity in our most vulnerable communities. And then corporations that maintain their store's appearance, we know, show respect for the communities in which we serve. So if we're going to have a lot of these types of stores within our communities, they need to be able to give back to their communities by keeping their stores cleanly and respecting their communities. And then corporations can and do offer quality retail options. They just haven't quite brought those types of offerings to the city of Cleveland. So a few examples of some localized quality corporate retail formats by these types of stores and other corporations are Walmart provides a neighborhood market in the southeastern United States. This is a full service grocery store with pharmacy, and that's predominantly all that they sell. They're generally kept in a lot different condition than their basic Walmarts. Locally down the street from us, there's a different type of McDonald's. It's a very fancy McDonald's. In fact, it's probably the fanciest McDonald's I've ever been in. Dollar General actually has also stepped into the grocery market just like Walmart and providing just basically a Dollar General market. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see what that looks like. In the lower right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that inside that store that looks totally different than your typical Dollar General format. The other option is Dollar General has also started and Target and Amazon have decided to enter the small formatted business. And then what they're finding out actually is that these stores offer, even though they're a bit higher quality and smaller stores, they actually are higher, they're having more higher profits per square footage within their stores. And so DGX Cleveland is something that recently came to our downtown. That's another version of Dollar General, which is their urban format. And then Target also offers an urban store in places like Pittsburgh, New York City, Charlotte, etc. So in conclusion, zoning in our history has generally been to separate, segregate, and alienate. But in this instance, I think that zoning can be used as a tool to really help protect the health, safety, and welfare of our most vulnerable residents in our some of the poorest areas of our city. This legislation seeks to reduce and avoid the overconcentration of these types of stores and their negative secondary effects. And we believe that this legislation will promote equity and encourage healthy outcomes for the city of Cleveland. And with that, I hope that you will consider passing this very important zoning legislation.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to just say a couple of things that I want to leave on the consciousness of the council. One, we have to remember that the choices people make are based on the choices that they have. So creating options for individuals are very important. And if they have the right options, they'll make the right choices. The other thing is we emphasize equity, and equity is not about the conversation, but it's about the transaction. And we believe that this is an example of how you transact equity. And we also believe that it's only through policy that we can really get to the root causes of the things that create these inequities and disparities that we see in our neighborhoods. And just to use Ward 6 as an example, and Councilman Griffin's work and the work that we're doing in that community, healthy retail options, they have to be a priority. And we have to innovate around approaches to delivering retail as something that you will potentially see in the future in Ward 6 with some innovation around grocery store and how grocery store can be integrated into development. It's initiatives like that that's really going to help us change that dynamic. And again, I do want to emphasize, this is not a witch hunt on dollar stores. This is about making sure that the capacity is such that the quality of service delivery is not diminished. And we believe that the zoning code is a option for ensuring that fidelity to delivering quality retail is adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Shannon, for your presentation and for all the information that you have sent us. A lot for us to digest, and appreciate all the research that was done to really kind of create the presentation for today. If you can close your screen down real quick, Shannon. I need to see the all our smiling faces and our great. Thank you. And just a couple of quick comments as a follow-up. And as we've seen these grocers continue to, these small box come in, you know, they start one way and give us a nice picture of what they plan on doing. For instance, on the last iteration, well, we're not going to be selling beer. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. Next thing we know, we got 25 requests for beer licenses in our community. And then, you know, we don't have the ability to object in a way that would stop the state from issuing them that license. And so, you know, we're dealing with them in a different way. And then the other proliferation that you saw in that skyrocketing number also doesn't take into account when we see mergers happen, and then we have these stores close. And just along that Broadway corridor, we see some of these vacant former small box stores with no regard for the community. There's dumping, they don't keep it clean, they don't keep the cars out of it. Windows get broken, and then we end up having to spend our significant resources to go in and enforce codes because we're not the owner, but you know, they were a tenant, and the reason that store was built was because of them. But now they get to walk away from it, and then we have to suffer the consequences of these vacant stores that are sitting around now. And we most likely will see another merge occur as this business model continues to change over the years. And even on the planning, as diligent as we are when we bring these to committee for construction and they're asking for their variances, the planning department and our stakeholders and BRDs are very conscious about fencing and landscaping, which lasts for the moment of when they build it, but they don't maintain them over time. And we're stuck having to deal with that, which is truly troubling. And then they just rely on us to have to be the enforcers of this. And as Shannon pointed out, you know, the difference between a Family Dollar on Broadway and a Family Dollar in Parma is significantly different on how they care for that store and what it looks like. And it's truly troubling that they have this urban model that really has less respect for us as a city than it does for our counterparts. So that certainly has been an issue. And then I think many of our colleagues have outlined, I know Councilman Griffin, Councilman Polensik, and others have had a list of calls for service and brevities of how much city services that some of these small boxes take up, and the health department, et cetera. So it does continue to exacerbate the problems that we have to deal with. And on top of all the issues you raised around squeezing out smaller markets and our local mom and pops. A question I had around the 2-mile buffer, if there's a cause and a rationale that can be made, is that something that can be applied for as a variance if somebody would say they're within 1.5 miles or something along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, so anything in the zoning code is not a complete prohibition. I mean, there is a 2-mile distance buffer, but they can go, if they fall under that 2 miles, if they decide that they want to open another within 2 miles, they can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and seek a variance, just like any other variance process.
Okay, but it does not impact neighboring municipalities. That doesn't impact.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't
we don't
regulate our
regulate.
neighboring jurisdictions, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah, and I sadly I saw that firsthand where Family Dollar was opening their 3rd Family Dollar in the Slavic Village community, and we pushed back hard on it, but they went 2 feet west of us and went to Newburgh Heights at the corner of East 55th and Harvard, and that mayor embraced them, and they opened up a Family Dollar there, tore down some houses, and we're stuck dealing with the after effect of that now.
The back end of Family Dollar.
That's right.
The back end of Family, exactly.
Those boundaries get blurred really quick.
Yes.
I don't know if there's a way to work with the other jurisdictions on that. That would be probably a law department or you guys question.
There's a speed camera at that Family Dollar as well, so I don't know that that jurisdiction will be any cooperative anytime soon. Councilman Griffin, you're up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I first want to thank Director Collier and Ms. Beatty for a very thorough presentation. They're right. We've been working on this for probably 3 years. Very technical, a lot of information that we had to digest. And I really appreciate their work on this, because what we're trying to do is really just strike the right balance. I want to underscore what Director Collier said. This is not a witch hunt for dollar stores. We just want to design and zone and create a city with all of the planning and all of the things that we're doing that will make sure that we promote corporate responsibility. So whether it was a small box retail store or other things, it's time for us to, stop falling for the soft bigotry of low expectations in the city of Cleveland. We got to start demanding high quality. We have to start demanding through our legislative powers to hold these corporate institutions responsible. We need to make sure that one time Cleveland had more than 8,000 grocery stores. When I first moved in the community that I live in on Larchmere Boulevard, we had Drug World, which you can go and get everything from your prescription to vegetables to a gallon of milk if you wanted to. We need to get back to that community building model. And this is just strictly about making sure that we have a piece of zoning in place that really gives us the tools that we need in order to make sure that we have an equitable community. We know a lot of these communities have been redlined, and we know that a lot of these areas that they're putting these stores are in communities that have been redlined. The map showed it all. If you looked at that Woodland Hills Buckeye corridor, you see several small box retail stores. And fortunately, we were able to find a grocer to go on Buckeye Plaza, or else we would have been without a store in this area and this footprint as well. It's interesting that people will question our zoning because people will call this a hot issue, a controversial issue. And quite frankly, I can care less about controversy. That's what we deal with on a regular basis. But it's interesting that you want to create controversy because we want to put zoning and rules and regulation in place. But then I look at that McDonald's and I look at some of these other stores and just look at, their zoning that they put in place and the type of institutions that they get compared to us. I just actually rode by that McDonald's last night, so I know exactly the one that you're talking about. And it really bothers me that when we try to push for quality in the city of Cleveland, people want to try to make it seem like we're being anti-corporate, or that we're just, these folks are, low income and we need to provide these options for them. Yeah, well, we do need to provide options, but it need to be quality options. It needs to be things that if I'm going to be able to walk to a store like Dollar General, which happens to be a little bit of a step above some of the other corporations, in my opinion, that I should be able to get groceries, that I should be able to get these things. Because one of the things that the report didn't mention is the amount of people that walk in this city. So there's a tremendous amount of people that are pedestrians, that everybody that does not have a car that can drive to a big box retail store. So it's important that we try to make sure we provide the quality items that they need in order to live successfully in our community. I just want to thank city planning for really, really digging into this and doing a deep dive to this. There have been some very intimate conversations about our ability to do this. And we didn't just, taking a line from my good friend, Councilman Conwell yesterday, we didn't just look at other cities and accept what they did. We actually became trendsetters. We actually became trendsetters in Cleveland. And pretty much by what we've done and what we put in place, other communities like Brecksville, Independence, and other places are putting in zoning regulations on these type of stores as well. So I really hope that my colleagues see this for what it is. This is just about equity and trying to make sure that we have, that our community gets just as quality as any other community, and making sure that we hold these corporate folks accountable when they come in town. Myself and Council President did meet with many of the leaders of these corporations, and I have to put them on the spot. they actually even recognized that there were some things that they were having some shortcomings in, and they seen some of their stores and said, this is unacceptable. So they even recognized that. So this is not something that we're doing to be egregious towards that market. This is us just really trying to make sure that we provide the best options for our citizens. So thank you so much. I think this is one of the more important pieces that we're doing, and I hope that my colleagues would join us in supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll put Councilman Griffin on the spot. When he lived in Slavic Village, he was just down the street from an Uncle Bill's and a giant tiger. So that's in the way back machine.
Yeah, exactly. Then the Kmart.
And then the Kmart came in. Councilman Hairston, did you have your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Oh, giant tiger, man. Giant
GTs.
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Griffin is right. It's simply just about ensuring that our residents has quality selections within the community. You know, I before this presentation, I had no idea that there was these neighborhood markets by Walmart, that these enhanced Dollar General stores. I had no idea these even existed. I thought all of the small dollar stores were what we had here. I had no idea. So I think planning and the research that you all have done to really bring this to our attention, so we know that, you know, there is other options, and we deserve some of these options that are being offered in other places. And I am wholeheartedly 100% supporting this effort that we are taking up to ensure that, you know, these retailers step up their game in our communities. I will say, when part of the discussion, it made me think about when we're talking about the cleanliness, the trash and debris, how they landscape the areas. In fact, I knew a gentleman who did landscaping for Dollar General stores, and I said, hey, and I was talking to him about the trash that they just, you know, take the blower, blow it out, and keep moving, right? He said, well, they won't let us do anything further or anything more than just kind of cutting and blowing. You know, we're not allowed to go and put mulch or nice rocks down. We're not allowed to do anything more than. He said, in these neighborhoods, but when I go out and do the landscape in other places, they make sure that I do it at a different level than I do down there. And when we first started this, I don't know if you remember, Councilman Griffin, that I mentioned that. I said, man, you know, I know one of these guys who do work for them, and they said it out their mouth to me that they are not prohibited. They are prohibited from doing certain level of detailed work, and depending on what areas they're working in. And that's a problem. And that is a real problem. So I hope, you know, what we're doing today and what we are working on for the future really hold these individuals and the store manager, the individuals that are store managers, the corporate folks accountable for what they are putting in our neighborhood. So to the chairman, to Mr. Griffin, I am 100% supportive of these efforts. And thank you, planning, for your great work, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hairston. Do I have any other hands up or comments? I do not. There's a lot of information here that we're digesting, and if I could suggest, I would like to pass this out of our committee and move this on to finance. But I would like to add a step, if I can, with the planning department. As Councilman Griffin mentioned, that we did meet with staff from some of the other dollar stores, and just make sure that we circle back with them before this comes to finance, and we'll have that combined meeting now that we have this all flushed out. If Councilman Griffin, if that makes sense to you, we'll pass that out of here and then meet with them.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Chair. If they need help getting in contact with a couple of their representatives, I'll be willing to be helpful with that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and certainly thank you for all your hard work on putting this together. No further questions. 8/16/2020 stands approved as read. Thank you very much. Next up, we have 8/56/2020 by Council Members McCormick, Benkatelli, and Kelly. By department request, authorizing the mayor and the commissioner of purchase and supplies to acquire and reconvey properties presently owned by WRB Partners LLC or its designee located at 1468 West 9th Street for the purposes of entering into the chain of title prior to the adoption of tax increment financing legislation authorized under section 570941 of the revised code for the Western Reserve Building project. Director, you're up.
All right. Good morning. Thank you. This ordinance is the first ordinance that is required to authorize a non-school TIF to support the redevelopment of the Western Reserve Building on West 9th Street and Superior. The building has been vacant, over 50% vacant for several years and has been on a downward trajectory for more than that. New ownership group has come in, affiliated with some of the folks from the Hemingway Development Group that we've worked with on other projects through the city, and has purchased the building and prepared a $13 million investment in the project. They've identified a lead tenant who will take about 40,000 square foot of that building, turn it around, and allow for the reactivation of that area of downtown, which has been struggling a little bit. And so this relocation will help to re-anchor that western portion of downtown. So this would authorize us to enter into the chain of title. The later investment, there'll be a second piece that will authorize the non-school TIF for the project.
Great. I'm very familiar with the project. Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the director's work on this. Again, this was a largely underutilized building in the downtown neighborhood, on quite frankly, a stretch that has been pretty dormant for a while, an important stretch of downtown. Excited about the job growth associated with this project. Now more than ever, especially through the pandemic, we've got to be working hard to create and grow jobs in the city of Cleveland. And this is one of those projects that does that. So it's exciting to see this project come online. It's an important rehabilitation of a historic building in our city. And it will, again, be a catalyst for job growth in Cleveland.
Great. I do not see any other hands up. With that, 856-2020 stands approved as read. Thank you very much. We'll sign it up. Ordinance number 879-2020 by Councilmembers Brancatelli and Kelly by department request. Authorize the Director of City Planning to apply for and accept one or more grants for the Northeast Ohio Area Coordinating Agency and the Ohio Department of Transportation for the 2021 Transportation for Livable Communities Initiative, authorizing a tri-party agreement with NOACA and the Ohio Department of Transportation, authorizing agreements with various entities, accepting cash donations, and authorizing the director to employ one or more professional consultants to implement the grant. Director Kyer.
Thank you. I have just a few slides I want to show you. This will be a relatively brief presentation, but it's just important to provide some context.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Let me know when you can see my screen.
You're on.
Okay, great. So many of you are familiar with or have gone through the Transportation for Livable Communities program through the Northeast Ohio Area-wide Coordinating Agency. This program has served us well in the city of Cleveland and has supplemented a lot of our planning activity. One good thing I would like to add that I think you all be excited about is that there is no more cash match required by local municipalities, which is tremendous. So we can actually move on these things relatively quickly now instead of hunting for resources for match money. But this particular 2021 iteration will be focused on three Transportation for Livable Communities initiatives, each of which are relatively strategic in nature. The total request to NOACA is $290,000 for these three projects. Now, as you also know, these TOCI grants are obviously competitive because they are open to the entire NOACA region. The first one is extremely important. Many of you already know that we have been focused on waterfront development in the city of Cleveland for many years now. The West Shoreway, Battery Park, Edgewater Park and the activities there. Also, there's been a focus on the core waterfront, which is, and Councilman McCormick know this age-old work that we have to do with trying to connect the downtown grid to the waterfront. and trying to capitalize on assets there. And then most recently, our focus has been on the Eastern waterfront. The Eastern waterfront, as Councilman Harrison knows, is starting to see some significant development projects come online. But one of the key things that the administration and the council has been very bullish about is really connecting these assets to neighborhoods. Without the neighborhood connections, it really doesn't serve the community well. And in order to do that, we have to overcome some barriers. And this map shows the study area that we're going to be focusing on. There's a lot of planning activity that we have to build off on, but the NOACA TLCI work will be really focused on how do we connect the various assets to development opportunities that we've identified in this footprint, and really starting to take advantage of the waterfront and linking that back into the neighborhood. And this is going to be a very critical and strategic TLCI for us. We know that federal resources will come soon, we hope, with the new infrastructure bill. And we need to be ready with respect to projects 2.2 to get to the point where they're shovel ready. So there's $100,000 being requested for this. That's going to focus on multimodal transportation planning, leveraging development opportunities that myself, Director Ebersol, and an internal team is working on, trying to leverage, connecting to green space amenities, which obviously it's abundant here. And also we're going to be partnering with UCI and Famicos on some work that they've been doing with respect to connecting the Glenville and St. Clair Superior neighborhoods better to the amenity that is Rockefeller Park. The next piece is also extremely critical. And as Councilman McCormick knows, we often have to do a lot of arm wrestling with various interests as development continues to just grow in this neck of the woods on the near west side. This is obviously one of the higher density growth areas that we have in the city. And with the introduction of that density in those land uses, we are always in a street fight about parking and things of that nature. So one of the things that we wanted to do working with Ohio City Development and the councilman is really start to, let's examine this in its entirety. So really taking this geography and starting to focus on, again, multimodal transportation, looking at transit, public transit, looking at transportation demand management, which would include a parking analysis, and also coupling that with land use, and that's in partnership with OCI. And then the last area that we want to focus on, and again, this is an asset-based approach, looking at corridors and looking at proximity to development, is $90,000 for the Rocky River Connectivity Plan, which is in Councilman Slife's ward. He's been working with staff member Adam Davenport on this project. Also, again, to look at these layers of development and really try to improve the transportation connectivity and mobility options for people in neighborhoods and linking those up with assets. So that's the three that we're going to be focusing on in this round. Again, all very important, all very strategic in nature, and we are seeking your support in advancing this activity and moving it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know we've been working on, am I echoing that bad? Oh, there we go. I know we've been working on these grants for a number of years. This is exciting to see as these continue to move forward and how creative your department has been in being able to do these overlays. And I think your point on setting the table as these next infrastructure projects come up is critically important. Questions on 879-2020? I do not see any hands raised. Okay, 879-2020 stands approved as read. Let's sign it up. Thank you very much. Next up, we have 885-2020 by Council Members Brancatelli and Kelly by department request, authorize the Director of Economic Development to enter a grant agreement with Manufacturing Works, formerly known as Westside Industrial Retention and Expansion Network, WireNet, or its designee to provide economic development assistance to finance the administration of the Cleveland Industrial Retention Initiative Program. Director Ebersol.
All right, I didn't want you to feel alone in the talking while muted department. So this is our annual agreement with Manufacturing Works to run the SIRI program. SIRI provides services to our manufacturing businesses through visits, through checking in, through helping them to navigate various processes through the city. In order to keep our manufacturing businesses strong and retain and keep them in Cleveland. A couple of changes this year. This is a 18-month grant. It's $735,000. It's roughly about $500,000 annually, typically, and so we're converting us from a summer fiscal year to an annual to a January, December. So this is a 18-month period that takes you through the end of 2021. Series working right now on a analysis of the manufacturing sector as it pertains to the COVID crisis. So that's one of their goals, one of their requirements of their work scope this year, to deliver that in the first quarter of 2021. Just very briefly, we've seen if you look at the industrial sector, some businesses are doing really well. Some businesses are struggling depending on what field they're in. Durable goods, home improvement has been pretty strong through the pandemic, but some of the more heavier manufacturing has been weak. One of the other things we're seeing is that there's a lot of backlog right now as manufacturers and businesses were shut down for that roughly 2 to 3 month period in the spring, pulled down their inventories a lot. So some of the work that people are doing right now is building back inventory. So there's still some potential dark clouds on the horizon as once that inventory gets built back, will we still see spending maintained to keep that. So there's some interesting things going on in the manufacturing sector that we're trying to get a better picture on. And then third focus is really to try and do a little bit more focus on more growth-oriented business. Series traditionally done a really broad reach and touching businesses, asking them to maybe touch fewer but go deeper, if that makes sense, and try to help think, instead of just reacting to what business needs are, help them to think about whether their next position is for the next 6, 12, 18 months. And if there's a way that we, whether through financing or through some of our regulatory issues, are maybe involved in that growth, workforce being another big component, that we can help get in front of it and position the companies for success instead of finding ourselves in a reaction mode. So a few different changes that I think is going to make the program a little more effective for the coming year. So that's pretty much the background for this piece.
Thank you very much, Director, and certainly thank you to our SIRI reps and those who are out there, especially during this pandemic and having to share information on how folks can get access to resources. Having those folks out in the field have been a great resource for us. So, Councilman McCormick.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is the total allocation in this ordinance?
735,146.
Thank you. Chair to the Director, what was the allocation in the prior year?
I would have to look it up, but it was 500 something thousand, right around there.
Thank you. So there was a significant increase in this line item. Can you explain that increase, Director?
Yeah, this is an 18-month agreement as opposed to a 12. So we're switching from going from June to June to going to January to December. So this covers this 2020,
end of 21.
July 2020 to December 2021.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Director, as you know, the light manufacturing, I ask you about it almost every time we talk about job growth in Cleveland specific to my ward as well. I think about the light industrialists, some who have outgrown their space and have gone to the suburbs, not because they don't like Cleveland, but because they've had a hard time finding space in the city. The new light industrial building on 110, glad to see that's fully booked, but that's a Amazon distribution center, which it feels like everything now is an Amazon distribution center. So Chair to the Director, can you discuss a few examples of the SERI initiative and what achievements they've had specifically in retaining manufacturing in Cleveland?
Sure. So one really good example that we've worked on is a business over on in the 40s in the St. Clair Superior area that had we had to work through a company that was looking to expand because they got a new contract. They're a federal defense contractor, and they had to expand their footprint. And in order to expand their footprint, they had to go through where there was a utility pole that serviced the building. And so SERI was working with the business. Business was having trouble getting traction because utility poles can wind up being owned by a variety of different people, and it's not always obvious who that the owner of that pole is. So in this case, took that the pole was a CPP pole. We were able to work with them, get them out there in a couple of days, and actually get the pole moved, because the company, I think we started talking about this on a Tuesday, and the company had to be able to show the Defense Department that they had this expansion ready to go by Friday. And so we were able to get that pulled together within a week through the intervention of the SERI program, my office, and the assistance of Director Davis's office. And so, that's an example of kind of the work that we've been able to do to sort of navigate some of the challenges that are out there. That businesses don't necessarily know how to get in front of.
Thank you, Director. I wonder, for future planning purposes. I mean, $750,000 is a lot of money out of our funding. And I'd like to see a full report of the jobs retained or increase or retained or increased through this program. And I wonder too, if it makes sense too, should we be thinking about expanding the economic development department when it comes to this industrial, retention versus, farming it out? I don't know the answer to that, but $750,000 is a lot of money. And so I just want to make sure that for our taxpayers and others, that we are getting the bang for the buck out of this. So Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request the data on jobs retained or created through this initiative for the calendar year of, let's say, 2019, 2020.
Yeah, I could share the annual report from SERI. And I think part of the response to the points that you brought up, I think will be accomplished by that shift in tone in the agreement, going deeper rather than broader. And I think, in talking with there's been leadership change at Manufacturing Works about 18 months ago, talking with the new leadership there. I think we're on the same page as far as maybe a need to focus more on going deeper with these companies and getting into not just solving the problems that come up, but in really trying to think more strategically about the roles that we can play together.
I appreciate that, Director. And Chairman, the reason that this is something I dig into, again, whether it's Voss Industries and or Conveyor Caster, and Director, I know that your team is great in working with these folks, but we lost those folks to the suburbs. There's no getting around that. And that's income tax. Those are jobs that are accessible to our residents on bus lines that are gone. And so I wonder, for those examples, what did SERI do to retain those jobs in Cleveland? And I want to make sure that, whether it's the construction of modern and efficient industrial space in our neighborhoods, east and west, that we are saying to a manufacturing company, hey, we know, let's predict this. Let's not wait till it's a crisis point. We know that you're growing. We know that you're landlocked. We know that you don't have room to grow. Let's onboard you into a new site where you can grow and be happy and work efficiently, growing and creating jobs. And I think why that's important, not only for income tax purposes and job growth, but our residents can access those jobs either via vehicle, but also in car, or excuse me, in public transit and other way. When a production facility goes to Westlake, it's much more difficult for our residents to reach those jobs. So I'm just, again, I wonder what was done. And Director, you and I had those conversations. And again, I know that your folks are hands-on on this. I know it because I work with you a lot. I just wonder if we're spending $750,000 a year or for 18 months for this purpose. I'm curious as to know what proactive outreach was done to ensure that those jobs, hundreds of good paying jobs in Ward 3 that went to the burbs, what was done to retain them? Are we getting our bang for our buck through this program? And if not, what needs to happen to retain those jobs? Again, not only an issue of tax base for the city, but also an issue of accessibility for residents in our city neighborhoods.
Sure. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, and I think we're doing some things to try and get deeper on that, and we will continue the conversation and get that information together.
I appreciate that, and again, Chairman, I appreciate that, but the results are going to be the results, and that's what we got to focus on. And again, this is not a reflection of the director. I think the director's department is very high functioning, which is why I almost wonder whether this type of program should fold under your department. But I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. And Joe Titron's been keeping a running list of different presentations that we'll have through this committee. And I think one of those is maybe having Siri come to the table and talk about, how that relationship is moving forward. And as the director talked about, as their new initiatives are coming out and expectations are coming out. So we'll put that on Joe Titron's nag list for me. Any further questions on 885-2020? I do not see any other hands up. 885-2020 stands approved as read. Next ordinance number 906-2020 by council members Conwell, Brancatelli, and Kelly by department request. Authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter a tax increment financing agreement with Library Lofts LLC and or UC City Center LLC and or their designees to provide for the development of new library, residential units, retail space, new parking for the Circle Square development project located at 10600 and 10605 Chester Avenue, to provide for payments to the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and to declare certain improvements to real property to be a public purpose. Director?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the piece that will authorize a non-school TIF to support a redevelopment of the project at 10600, 10605 Chester Avenue. There's only one ordinance with this TIF, and that is because this is the former 3rd District, 5th District Police Station there on 100 Chester and Stokes. And so the city's already been in the chain of title of the project. So the development group was selected via an RFP a few years back, and we entered into a development agreement with them for this project. The key component of the project has been the development of a new Cleveland Public Library. That's the MLK branch there that's halfway between Chester and Euclid on Stokes. That building is going to become part of the development. A new library will be built as part of the development on Euclid Avenue in the center of the block there between 105th and Stokes. And so this is the first project of that, the first development piece of that project. And it's a partnership between the local development team led by Steve Rubin and a organization called White Oak out of Chicago. And so they're going to provide some additional capital into the project. This project is about $125 million mixed use project that will include almost 300 market rate residential units, some 14,000 square feet of commercial development, and will really help to anchor that project. In addition, as part of that part of the project, there's some slowing of the traffic. So the part of the TIF will support that investment, a developer portion of that investment into the infrastructure requirement, which will take Chester, which kind of slingshot you around there, that corner pretty quick, make it into a true T intersection, kind of slow the traffic down, make it so you can, crossing Chester Avenue anywhere is kind of a nightmare. And so this will help make this a lot more walkable and really help to link some of the walkability between the University Circle District and the Cleveland Clinic and the health line going to the east and west on Euclid Avenue. So the new library has worked through their design process. I think they're looking to get underway with that next year, and the construction of this building as well will start in partnership with that. There's a lot of timing and phasing as part of the bringing up the new building, relocation of the library space, and so forth. But we're excited that this is projects starting to really come together.
Great. This is exciting. Seeing the traffic calming, seeing a lot of the design work on this already. So it is moving very quickly. So do I have any questions or comments on 906-2020? I do not see any hands raised. So 906-2020 stands approved as read. Let's move it forward. Thank you all very much. This has been a robust meeting, some great presentations, and a lot of great development projects moving forward. With that, we will call for an adjournment. Thank you very much.